to know that it is, very lucrative, as I said in the beginning, and you can make a pretty good living off of it. But you have to have certain things in place. You gotta go through certain areas, and a lot of people don't realize how important it is to have a mentor. Or a lot of people don't know how important it is to do their due diligence. People jumping out here off of the gurus selling the information, making you believe that they actually, jumping in these trucks, or they got all these trucks and they generating all this money and buying all these mansions, but really they buying all these mansions and all these cars off of the money, that the information that they sold to you. You know what I'm saying? So they selling you the information, and all they doing is putting it into a funnel, and it becomes residual income, and that's what they doing. But what we're talking about right now is doing the actual work, putting in the actual work. The money that I actually acquired over the course of time, it took skill. I put in the work, and I was able to maneuver the way I needed to maneuver to make best sense of the numbers that I make. But overall, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. So I'm gonna tell y'all, I spent a lot of time in the negative. You know what I mean? It was a lot of time where I wasn't generating no money. You know what I mean? And I'm one of the guys that went out of business and didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm trying to sit here and give y'all some facade, but I get where he going at with it as well. He's more so trying to actually zoom directly in on the issues that, is going on and how everybody is selling this information to you guys. But I'm trying to give y'all a little piece of my background, and then also let y'all know that I'm no different from you. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, and it's doable. And it's attainable. You can actually go and, get your first truck, put the work in, set up the proper plays with the proper training and the proper mentors, or the proper following, and you'll be able to do your thing and acquire more trucks. For me, that was a partial of my story, but overall, me putting the leg work in and me staying down and grinding is what put me in position. And then after that, I also did the homework. But let me just touch a little bases on some of the maintenance. Just to give y'all a little example. Let's say last week, I had a driver that was in Bethlehem, PA, and he pretty much had an issue with the air. So he was turning the truck on. The primary gauge wasn't building, but the secondary gauge was. So he going through all these different loopholes, and he has a load on his back. So we had another issue with that because one of the pallets tipped over. Mm-hmm. So they basically refused the load. Then they told him he needs to reschedule. So he called me. So we went back and forth, and he was like, "Oh man, also I got another problem. The air ain't building. For some reason, the air gauge, the noise keep going on." Now, we went through, I'm gonna say probably about 4 hours of messing around. He like, "Oh, I hear some air underneath the seat." So I'm like, "All right, well, check the valve, check the line coming from out of the seat, and the line coming out of the floor. Is it a union right there?" It's a union right here, but I can feel the air. I can feel the air." "All right, well, we're gonna need to chop that line, put a new line on there, get another union, and chop that line and put a new union on there, or we're gonna need to put some grip pliers on there, shut that air off, and get the truck back home." Moral of the story, we went through all of this. He slowed down the air, but it was still air coming from the dash. He called a service guy to come out. This wasn't nothing through me actually picking up the phone and like, hey, calling one of the repair shops that I have an account with. This was him just doing his due diligence, Googling some repair shops, and he reached out. The gentleman that got on the phone, he actually said, it sounds like you might have a chamber issue, or it could be coming from the dash. He gave him this whole smoke screen story and put it in a nice little package and put a little bow on top of it to give it to him. And he called me, and I'm sitting, I'm listening, and 1,000 things running through my mind, a whole bunch of different things running through my mind, and I'm exhausted. So I'm like, you know what? Put me on three-way with the guy. He get the guy on the phone, the guy was a salesman. So when it all boiled down, the guy basically told him, if we come out, it's going to be a $350 service call. Mm-hmm. It's going to be $2.50 per mile to get to you.
Going and coming.
Going and coming back. And he was about an hour and like 12 hours, 15 minutes from what he said away. Mm. He said that he was busy. He had multiple calls. and he wanted to try to be able to get to us as soon as possible. So we need to make a decision here quick so we can know what he's going to do, because if not, he got to take another call. This guy was probably sitting on the couch chilling. You know what I mean? Just waiting for us to say yes so he can say, got it. Now, not even including what he would have charged for whatever the parts, because he got to put his upsell on it. You know what I mean? His upcharge wherever he getting the parts. And then he said, outside of the service charge and the miles charge, he said it was a 3-hour minimum.
And another one that I noticed, and you know, working at the truck stop, then they come out, diagnose the truck, tell you they found the problem. We gotta run back to the shop to get the part.
Yes, yes.
Instead of bringing it with them, because that's gonna add another couple hours plus the mileage.
Yep. The moral of the story is that one little situation, which was recent. This was recent. By the time I did the math in my mind and computing, because you know, if you actually end up getting trucks or becoming, you know, a multi-truck owner, you're going to learn how to compute things very fast. You know what I mean? And right there off the blink, I'm looking at about $850. That's $850, and that's not even including whatever sauce, whatever else he's going to sprinkle on it. You know what I mean?
And that's whether they fix it or not.
Whether they fix it or not, good point, brother. Whether they fix it or not, you still gotta pay them, whether they're gonna get that money up front or they already got a card attached to the account where they're gonna pull that money no matter what.
And not to spoil the milk. That's why all those books over there, I'm gonna be talking about that. If y'all been following me all this time, then y'all noticed recently I've been zeroing in more on maintenance and less on loads. So I'm gonna talk about that when it's my turn.
Okay.
But,
yeah, so it's your biggest expenses. You got 3 big expenses that you're gonna get stung with. One is maintenance, the next is tolls, and the one that's the quiet killer is insurance. A lot of people skip the insurance part because they just getting, you know, broadcasted with a whole bunch of information, and there's 1,000 insurance companies out there. But everybody typically go towards Progressive. That's like the go-to company. But depending on whatever you got going on, and not even realizing that, yeah, you might have a company established, a corporation or LLC, but you're still a personal guarantor. So you're still personally attached to that. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of different things that still factor into them coming up with their quote that they give you. You know what I mean? And I was also a victim of that as well, where when I had first got my authority, my insurance was $2,200 per truck. I made some mishaps with pretty much acquiring more information because I was bringing some new drivers in, and my agent never removed the drivers from my policy. So they were sending me the emails, and I wasn't receiving the emails. At that time, I had four different emails. And by the time it was all said and done, they went through underwriting, went through the process, and they was like, okay, send them a new bill. I received a new bill for $5,600. And I'm like, well, why per unit. So I'm like, why did my insurance increase? And they was like, well, you added all these new drivers, and all of these new drivers that you added had issues. So all of them had something wrong, whether it was their driving record wasn't clean, whether they had other accidents that they didn't mention, whether they was going through the clearinghouse and they switched up something. But a lot of it was either a truck related or it was even personal related. And it pretty much spiked my insurance. But the biggest part, they wasn't even my drivers. These were people that I was running through the system in the process of hiring. And it didn't work out.
Oh, shoot.
So they never even removed them from my account. So these guys' name and information was still there. And they said, oh, well, you didn't call to let us know that we need to remove these guys, and they never made it through your system. So make a long story short with that, I ended up being stuck for a year.
With that premium?
With my premium that high.
Yeah, you got stuck.
And I went through all the different loopholes. I'm calling back and forth, trying to convince them that this wasn't my error. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was my agent fault, but I was calling directly to the insurance company, and I was trying to explain it to them. But in all actuality, they looked at it like, oh, it is what it is, and it was nothing that I could do about it.
Just to chime in on this, nobody gonna mind your business like you. So some years ago, I purchased 100 acres down in Texas. And insurance is based off of population. So I thought it'd be a good idea to move my company down there because the population is lower. I asked for a quote. They gave me a quote. I didn't take it, and then the next thing you know, when my next bill came, it was increased, and I never even initiated the quote. And then they wouldn't go backwards, just like with him, because I know you fought like hell.
Yeah.
And the point I'm getting at is, know your shit and watch your business, because nobody gonna look over your stuff like you. You got to be on top of those fuel cards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever know when you can swipe somewhere, or if a driver's taking a little something, you got to know your mileage, how much you used to burning. You know, you got to watch your tires. You don't know if somebody had stole them and tried to resell them at a truck stop or something. You have to watch every single little detail of your business, because in this confirmation, this a mishap. It wasn't even your fault.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even my fault, but you still stuck paying for it. And in those situations, you know, nobody tells you this, but the insurance companies is the boss of the truck. They tell you whether you can operate, and they tell you who you can hire. They tell you if you can hire yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boss of the
Because
industry.
right,
Just
because
in general.
unless you got enough money to self-insure, which you're gonna need $1 million liquid, in order to self-insure. That's the only way around it. Other than that, the insurance company is gonna tell you can't even hire yourself. You know, there's been times where I couldn't operate, and no insurance company would take me. I had to put $15,000. You basically bribing the company. Not that I bribed them, but along with the down payment, I also had to put security deposit and non-refundable funds just in order to operate. So these are things, you know, and you can't afford not to do it, because what's the option? You gonna go back to being an owner operator, or you gonna give up the fight when you know the difference in income?
Mm-hmm.
So it's times where you got, and it's times you got to do some down and dirty stuff as well, which we're not gonna talk about. But y'all need to be prepared for this, because it's gonna come if you're in this industry. That's why he here. I didn't bring him up here to say I hate trucking. I brought him because he's doing well. I brought him up here to make y'all aware of the challenges you're gonna face, so you can be ready for the fight, because you can't dodge it. It's gonna come.
Mm-hmm. And then also, to add to that as well, go back to my brother here. When I'm saying that I'm in too deep, I've acquired so much that I have to keep moving. I have to keep going, because you know some people acquire a lot of things and then they'll crash out, and then you just don't realize how many different things is tied to that, and it domino affects other things in your life, which will domino affect other people's lives. So for me, I got to a point where I realized that my point of view and my vision is so big, other people's dreams can fit in it. So it just got to a point for me where I was like, I gotta keep going, I gotta stay consistent, and I gotta keep pushing. But
it's bigger than Nino Brown. He
Yeah.
ain't doing it. Nah, he ain't doing it just for himself. He got
Yeah.
families to feed.
Yeah.
He got mouths to feed in his family, plus other people who depending on him to do what he do in order for them to take care of their families. So if you give up, then you affecting more people than you.
mm-hmm.
What he say? If I go down, we all going down.
Hey, and do not get it twisted. Having all of the trucks and having these drivers, you about to start a new a daycare service.
That's where I was going next. What's your take on drivers?
What's up, bro?
How many units do you have?
11. I guess you guys just came in. Right.
We was here, but we didn't catch up again.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I got 11 trucks. I got 22 dry vans, and I got 2 low boys.
Your take on drivers?
Yeah. So pretty much with the driver retention, it's an art. It's an art to it. I think that for me,
Working tonight.
I think for me, I have a way of showing through action with how I do things. I'm not a big. I don't do a lot of. There's not a lot of verbiage with me when it comes to things that I do or I execute on. So that made it easier for me, kind of in my driver retention, if that kind of makes sense a little bit. The guys that I brought on were guys that actually saw me in my process and may have failed or may have went, astray, and they kind of came aboard. A lot of other people that I know and that I see, they struggle with driver retention because a lot of the issues that they have and that's occurring, they're not standing behind it. So you have a lot of drivers that are coming on with their personal view and opinion of what they think is the correct way to do and want to tell you how to run your company.
What you mean by standing behind it?
If they have any issues that occur. As you just said, nobody's going to do it like how you do it. People take this boss thing to the wrong way. It's a certain niche when it comes to being ownership. It's a certain level of leadership that you got to hold up to. And when you're giving somebody your word and you're being honorable about what you're doing, no matter what it is, you got to stand by it. Right. Some guys you have that you bring on, these guys think that they know it all and they got it figured out. And then you look at them sometimes and be like, well, why couldn't you do this or why you couldn't make sense of that? They don't view it that way. And they're not you. They're not taking on this position. So you might have them out there doing different things and they're driving, the truck could be breaking down, even as simple as the AC working and when it's hot. Some people have a different level of a fight, like where some people will say, okay, I'm gonna ride that truck. I'm gonna go ahead and grind because I know what my overall purpose and goal is. Other people be like, yo, I'm getting out of here. I ain't even doing that load. I'm gonna leave you in the middle of the morning because I told you I needed this fixed and I ain't gonna run that load. Or these guys will be across country somewhere in your equipment and to jump out the truck because of something, a simple mishap, and they'll leave your truck there. You know what I mean? So accountability is everything. I think that's where it worked for me because I was always honorable and I stood on the things that I've done, and I have a lot of respect for my guys and they also have a lot of respect for me. So I haven't been one of the victims of someone just leaving my truck randomly. You know what I mean? But I know a lot of people that happened to. When it comes to a lot of the drivers being brought on, if you're going through a process with hiring guys, a lot of people don't go through a real extensive vet process. How can I word this?
You got sauce people out. Excuse me. Look, do y'all understand trucking is a renegade sport? Alright. So the face of trucking is changing. It's becoming more female, it's becoming darker. But originally this was a bad boy sport. Biker.
Outlaw
the whole
trucking.
Exactly. So when y'all put people in trucks, understand that your truck is a bandominium on wheels. Okay. Somebody will turn your truck into a crack house real quick.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody, I used to think that paying people well was the answer. There's a such thing of overpaying people. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that out real quickly when you pay somebody, a company driver, $3,000, and you thinking you just did them a solid because you done paid them for a good. You work for it, you can get it. Right. And then when Monday morning come in, answering the phone because he's been in the hotel all week and he geeked out his mind.
Mm-hmm.
With a whore with him.
Mm-hmm.
Or I done had the DOT call me. They chasing the guy. He told them fuck them. Now, of course, he was of a different nationality because I probably would have been slain. But they let him go. Police called him, and he won't stop. And there's nothing they can do. Well, nothing they going to do. So, people find their trucks weeks later, no wheels, no nothing. I had a guy I rehired, which I don't do no more. There is no rehiring on me. That once you're done, you're done. He comes in, calls me, confirms the load is picked up. Then I don't hear nothing else from him. I'm in Chicago. He done dropped the load off at the truck, at the yard, and just disappears. No call, no nothing, and you states away. So be ready for what you signing up for when you're dealing with drivers. When you hire a driver, you are accepting all of their issues. So understand who you're hiring. If anything, drive with them for a week. Because one thing about acting is you can only keep on the costume for so long. At some point, the lights and the cameras gotta come off, and you gotta be who you really are. So you're gonna have to spend some time with them or talk with them a lot because everybody's gonna come in as this perfect. Hey man, I'll get it. I drive 10,000 miles a week. We done heard it all. Then they get their first paycheck and they got money to move into a place. Now they quit. Then they got this sob story after you done jump through hula hoops to help them get their licenses back and getting drug programs and all this stuff. You solving every problem in their life, and then you don't even exist. You laughing. You know,
like I said,
but
like I said,
y'all don't understand what's behind that laugh.
I'm like I said, I have an extensive story. Like I said, you know what I mean. But even with what he just now said, to make a long story short, don't hire out of desperation.
Right.
You know what I mean? You hire out of desperation, you're going to get the results of that. And I've experienced that as well. But, you know, all of that in the end, it still shouldn't deter you from wanting to be able to say one day you can actually have more, or you can acquire more, or you can do more. But the process that you have to go through to get to the point where you can say, okay, I've now got to a point where I'm at a point in my life where, okay, I'm numb to the problems and the things that's going to happen. I'm numb to knowing that I'm only going to get 2 hours of sleep at night, even with me having people in place to answer the phone calls. I'm not worrying about, me having to answer the phone while I'm in the shower trying to, get myself together and dealing with other issues. And then you get multiple issues occurring back to back to back to back. And you got to be mentally prepared to deal with it. You know what I mean? So in the end, you can ride with the driver. I personally got to a point where I had one of my guys drive with the drivers. Before, I would drive with the driver for about 3 days.
You think that's enough?
No, I mean, because you still don't know.
I'm asking, I ain't refuting.
Oh no, yeah, you don't know a person's personality, because you'll be getting talked to by this guy, but not realizing that the whole time he's charming you.
Right.
Now you might have somebody that that can give you a clean record, but you don't know all of the things that he did behind the scenes that he just didn't get caught for. You know, and then I've had drivers where I'm looking at the driver talking to me clean cut, and I pull right off and take a sniff. You know what I mean? And countless times finding different residue and paraphernalia in the truck. It goes way beyond, but you get to a point where you become numb to it, and you kind of become immune to the stuff that's going on, and you find your way to adjust to it. So that, that's pretty much my point of view on it as well. I don't want to, be long-winded about it, you know what I mean? But I really think that you guys gotta be clear on what you're looking at.
I got a question for you. As far as payroll and employees, what do you think are the essential tools in your team of linemen? You the quarterback, so people focus on expanding. Allow them to understand the people they're gonna have in place in order for the machine to work. So they don't run out there and try to run a one-man show and then crash out.
That's a good point. A lot of people never make the transition from a truck driver to a company, to a fleet owner. That's a very important piece to factor in. People acquire these additional trucks and don't realize that you don't just acquire the trucks and transition into having these trucks. You have to become the person that owns these trucks before you even acquire the trucks. And a lot of people don't know how to process that because they're so used to driving, and then they go out and grab these trucks with a truck driver's mindset. You need to make the adjustment to actually being a company owner, a fleet owner. And you have to remove yourself completely from that truck. And now you're functioning off of how to run your day-to-day operation in your office. So to answer his question, far as my concept from it, you need to be at least staffed in each department